Hello and welcome to the Allplane podcast, where in every episode, aviation professionals share insights about their area of expertise within the aviation industry. But before we start, just a quick reminder that you can find the whole podcast collection and plenty of other aviation stories on our website, Allplane.tv. That's ALLPLANE.tv. On this podcast, we usually talk about airplanes. And by airplanes, I mean fixed-wing aircraft. However, today, for a change, we are going to talk about helicopters, because helicopters are the specialty of our guest today. Charlotte Pedersen is the CEO of Lux Aviation Helicopters, one of the major aviation operators in the world, serving the VIP and VVIP segment. In fact, she has devoted her whole career to helicopters, both in the private and public sectors. Prior to Lux Aviation, Charlotte worked for the Civilian Aviation Authority of Luxembourg, and before that, she also flew Sea King helicopters for the Royal Danish Air Force, where she even had the Queen of Denmark on board as a passenger a number of times. In this episode, we talk about the business of providing helicopter rides for the rich and famous, about new trends in rotor-wing aircraft, and of course, about how the current pandemic is also having an impact in the helicopter world. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest today. Hello, Charlotte. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Very fine. Except the weather is not so good outside right now in Luxembourg. It's raining and it should be 25 degrees and sun. So.
Yeah, it's raining here as well. I'm in Barcelona at the moment, and we had pretty good weather, but today it looks like we are back in winter. It's rainy and cloudy. So not a great helicopter weather, because actually today we're going to talk about helicopters, which is a topic you know really well, and that I must confess that for all the time I spent looking at aviation things, it's a bit unknown to me. Although I have written a couple of pieces about helicopters, but it's an area that I don't know as well as fixed-wing aircraft. So I think it's going to be great to learn a bit more about this segment of the aviation and aerospace industry. Shall I suggest we start by introducing who you are? You're a former helicopter pilot, right? With the Danish military. You're originally from Denmark.
That's true.
You used to fly one of these large Sea King military helicopters, right?
Yes, who now most of them are only to be found in museums, unfortunately.
Okay.
So I'm even though I don't want to admit it, I'm slowly approaching the age of the dinosaurs because my airplanes are to be found in museums only.
But there's still quite a few operational.
There are some. The Sea King, which I was trained on initially, now it's already 30 years back. They were a really good workhorse as a helicopter, and they simply continued to fly. And if you maintained them well, a lot of the countries who have them in operations, the machines are close to 40 years old, and they still fly.
And they fly in the sea, which I guess it's a more unforgiving environment. Must be really a rough and tough.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But the Sea Kings was such a nice helicopter to fly. You will hear the same from a lot of the pilots who have flown them, that was almost a machine that you had a strong passion about, I would say, because it was easy to read. Not that it didn't break down all the time, but it was easily to analyze what was wrong with it and to decide, can we move on or not? A safe machine.
You even flew Queen Margaret of Denmark on occasion, right?
Yes, we did, because at that time when I was in the military in Denmark, it was the Air Force. My squadron was called 722 Squadron, and we were doing search and rescue all over Danish territory, and also at night into the neighbor countries. We had a really good collaboration with the neighboring countries on search and rescue capacity. But one of the missions we had, which was one of our favorite ones, besides search and rescue, of course, was that whenever our royal household had to go somewhere, how shall I say, off the normal airports in the country, and if we as a helicopter could support their transportation needs, then we were used also to fly the royal family. So that was something very special, and the Queen was always extremely pleasant to fly with. She always came to us in the cockpit and said hello and goodbye and thank you, and had a little nice comment.
Later, you continue to work in helicopters, also with a very VIP public, let's say, because you are now at Lux Aviation, right? Which is a helicopter operator based in Luxembourg. Is it the largest, or possibly one of the largest helicopter operators in Europe and possibly the world as well?
Yes and no. I would say it depends what sector you look at or what specific niche area you look at. So Lux Aviation Group is a global business aviation group which operates business jets and helicopters. We also own and manage the FBOs, the VIP terminals at the airports, where you go to when you come with a private flight. We are a global group comprising today, I believe we have 15 aviation companies. We have 27 or 28 FBOs. We are a global workforce of approximately 1,500 employees. And within everything we do, which is the private aviation sector, the VIP sector, we work with high net worth individuals, with companies, with governments, with royal families, etc., etc. So we have many services in the luxury segment in our group. We also have a lot of besides managing and operating the VIP aircraft and helicopters, we also have other services. We have fine wine services. We have amazing trips. And we do client service trainings and many more niche areas, all within the luxury sector. But for the helicopters, we have our own organization where we take care of the high-end helicopters. So the luxury end of the helicopter segment, where we fly private and commercial on behalf of owners all around the world.
So when you say on behalf of the owners, you mean that you are actually taking care of the day-to-day maintenance and operation of the helicopter, but the helicopter might be owned by another person, another entity. I guess in most cases it's a company. So basically, you do all the day-to-day specialized work the helicopter requires, and then when this person or this company needs to fly, you make it available for them to fly, right? Whenever they do.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So we do not own the assets. There is an owner behind, whether it's a private person, a company, as I said, a government or royal family or whoever owns the asset, be it a helicopter or a jet. Then due to very strict regulations and also a lot of other things, there are requirements that these machines, now I talk specifically on the helicopter side, but it's the same on the jet side, that they are taken care of by a official helicopter company, so a commercial helicopter company or a professional helicopter company. So this is what we do. We take care of everything on behalf of the owner, coming from the very first step when an owner approaches us and say that he or she either owns a helicopter or they have the wish to own a helicopter and they need our advice. So we go in and typically try to understand what the client wants to do, what their habits are, what their plans are, how large the family is, if it's a private owner. And then we come with our best advice on which helicopter type to go for. Then the owner can decide on either buy a pre-owned helicopter or maybe order a new one. But with both, it requires that professional people come in and support. So for a pre-owned helicopter, we go out and we check the market for potential options that we believe is a good buy. And then we go out and check that the machines actually technically are okay. So that's called a pre-buy inspection. And if things are found to be okay, we help with the negotiation on the price and the purchase. We help on register the helicopter at the most convenient place for the owner. Then we go out and search for the right flight crews, do the interviews, hire flight crews, train them. We have operational control of the helicopter and the pilots and the engineers. In some circumstances, the engineers, in other circumstances, we use third party, but we check the organizations that they have the right approvals in place. And then we manage the operation. We make sure that the helicopter is available and ready to fly whenever the owner wants to fly. We track all maintenance inputs, make sure that everything according to manufacturer's recommendations are performed on the maintenance side, and we keep the helicopter up to date all the time. And then finally, we help to sell the helicopter in case that is the case. That is something the owner wants as well.
And do you own helicopters as well that people can charter without owning?
No, we don't own helicopters, but a lot of the owners, a lot of our clients, they don't use the helicopter every day. So if it's in their interest, we can offer them to charter out the helicopter when they don't need it themselves. And with that, they reduce the cost of owning the helicopter.
Okay, so it's an Airbnb, but for helicopters.
Yes. Yeah, you can call it that. That was I never thought about that, but you're right.
And one question I have here is actually at an operational level, how does this work? Because in the case of private jets, for example, here in the podcast, we had Adam Twiddle from Private Fly, and yes, we were talking about all the different ways that people can enjoy a private jet. But obviously the private jet has a range and a mobility that a helicopter doesn't have. So normally the movements of a helicopter are much more restricted geographically. So yes, how do you manage all these, let's say, geographical footprint? Because you might have some of these ultra high net worth individuals might need helicopters at different points, different times. Are they usually based at just at a handful of places, like let's say London or I don't know, Zurich or some of these places where these people live? Or you might want to rotate these helicopters to other places, like in the summer, I'm thinking like the Côte d'Azur, for example, or Cannes, or places like that. How does this, let's say, logistics of making helicopters available work?
I have to say yes to everything you suggested.
Okay.
And no to everything. It's that there is no full solution for it. So yes, you're absolutely right. Helicopters do not fly as long distances as jets. And yes, owners would like to use the helicopters also when they move around. So we have different options for all of this. So if I take, for example, our own clients with their managed helicopters. So they give the helicopters to us to take care of and manage. Some of these owners use the helicopters in their local region where they mainly live. And then when they travel, they just travel and leave the helicopter at home. And we eventually charter it out locally, if that is the case. If it's the London area, for example, there's a high demand for helicopter charters. So here we can offer our clients that we can charter out the helicopters when they don't need it. Other helicopters, they are based on mega yachts. So we are probably the largest operator for helicopters on yachts in the world.
So they are based permanently on the yacht?
Yes, they are based permanently on the yachts. So in our dedicated helicopter management company in the UK, which is called Starspeed, I have to mention, we also have other helicopter companies around the world. So we do have helicopter companies in Mexico and also in South Africa. To cover the local needs there. But in Starspeed in the UK, that's a little bit different because this company has specialized in managing helicopters that are permanently based on mega yachts. And since the owners of these mega yachts travel around the world and bring their yachts with them, then the helicopter automatically gets transported to the other side of the world and is ready also at other locations. If the helicopter is not staying on the yacht during the transfer, for example, crossing the Atlantic, then we take care of the transportation of the helicopters using cargo planes or cargo ships.
So you're managing like a sort of a naval aviation operation.
Yes, also we actually are, because it's a you need to have the knowledge about how to transport safely helicopters to the other side of the world, whether it's on a ship or in the back of a cargo plane, what needs to be done when they arrive, have people ready who are certified to work on the helicopters. Sometimes you need to take the blades off when you transport them, etc., etc. So there are many minor things that actually requires a huge expertise. So with that in mind, yes, our helicopters suddenly operate globally. However, for the other parts, the helicopters that we do not move around, but the clients that move around and need helicopter services where we don't have based helicopters, there we have established last year a global partnership organization where we partner up with the best local helicopter companies in other regions, which are not part of our Luxaviation group, but which are companies that we have been recommended, that we have found, that we have audited, and that we have decided that these companies we will partner with because they operate to similar standards that we do ourselves. And for those helicopter companies, we offer them to our clients and also to other clients, because we truly believe that they are unique in their location and that they are companies that we would like to recommend. So we somehow connect global helicopter charter companies with clients as well.
Because what would be the main centers of helicopter demand in Europe? Are there specific cities that stand out when it comes to helicopter usage?
I think it's pretty much what you see when you travel. Where is it that people like to travel? People like to travel to the capitals, and people like to travel to the holiday destinations. And in the same locations, that's where you find helicopter companies who are available for charter. Okay. So in Europe, it's typically you have a lot of helicopter traffic in London. You have it around Paris. You have it in southern France. You have it in southern Spain. You have it in Italy. So yes, Greece, holiday destinations typically, and also places where it's difficult to go from A to B. So it takes a lot of time. Take, for example, if you go to southern France, anybody who have been sitting in a car from Nice to Monaco in rush hour, they know why people take the helicopter shuttle.
Yeah, no, I was asking because I know in some cities like Sao Paulo in Brazil, for example, is the typical example. I guess it's the same in other mega cities like, I don't know, Mexico maybe New York, where you have lots of wealthy people and lots of traffic jams and then big distances, so people switch to helicopter if they can afford it. But in Europe, I didn't have this, I didn't have this idea of where this could be. Well, I mean, obviously megalopolis, and then all these playgrounds like the south of France. And do you do corporate market as well? So things like, I'm thinking here about the North Sea, all the offshore movements and all that.
No, we do not. That's a different niche in the helicopter area. So in general, in the helicopter world, you have helicopters flying in the military, and you have civilian helicopters. So military, for example, you have tons of helicopters all around the world. I believe there are more military helicopters in the world than there are military fixed wings. Okay. But in the civilian side, then the market is typically divided into, you have the commercial helicopter transport, is the large helicopters flying to oil and gas rigs in the North Sea and in other places of the world where you have oil and gas industry.
Yep.
Then you have the commercial air transport in the air taxi area, which is charter flights. Basically, commercial air transport is everywhere where you have passengers paying for the tickets. That is considered commercial air transport. And that's also one very important item to look for, is that, remember, if you're paying for tickets, whether it's fixed wing or it's helicopter flying, remember that has to be a commercial approved helicopter or fixed wing company who you are flying with. Otherwise, it's private flight and it's a different regulation. And that's a whole different story we can talk about.
Of course. So what are the helicopter types that are most popular with your segment, with the luxury VIP segment? Are there specific models or brands of helicopter that are more favorite with this segment?
Yes, there are. I mean, you have the main Western helicopters, which are typically what we see flying everywhere. You have Sikorsky, you have Airbus, you have Bell, and you have Leonardo. And then you have the smaller manufacturers who produce, are not necessarily smaller, but they produce maybe smaller helicopters.
The helicopters that go in a yacht, for example, in terms of size, they should be. I guess they are smaller or not really. I mean, you can have those yachts are so large that it really doesn't matter. You can land a helicopter.
Larger yachts, but again, here that when you cross over the area with maritime regulations and aviation regulations, you have to be very careful, because you have two sets of very regulated areas who sometimes cross over and doesn't really match each other. So you have to be ensure that you adhere to both sets of regulations. So when you operate to a yacht, again, you have to think about whether you operate private or commercial. And if you operate private, you can have almost any size of helicopter deck, and you do what you want because it's your own deck, it's your own helicopter. But when it comes to commercial operations, you have to follow commercial standards, and the deck has to suit the helicopter size, which is of course also recommended for private operation. The more the deck doesn't suit the size of the helicopter, the higher risk you fly with or you operate with. At least if it's a too small deck for too large helicopter, which is obviously, then you have a safety issue. But are there preferred helicopter options? I think what often happens is that when you have owners who own a yacht and they also want a helicopter, they get to a point where they are thinking that the helicopter flight is so short, do I actually need a huge helicopter for that purpose? Reality is, yes, you should think about it's a short flight, but if you don't make it during that flight, it's really sad. So you should go for a helicopter that has all the safety features that are needed when you operate onto a yacht. I prefer 200% twin engine helicopters. I know there's a big argument in that. Why do you need twin engine helicopters and is single engine helicopters are fully as safe? Yes, they are. But if you have a twin engine helicopter, you have a dual hydraulic system, you have dual oil system, etc., etc. So you have backups for everything. And I always say, would you ever go with your yacht to distant places with one engine and one hydraulic system and one oil system? And most say no, never. So I say, then don't do it with your helicopter. Get one which can take you safely from A to B, and if something goes wrong, it will still take you safely from A to B.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, you have added redundancies there built in.
Exactly.
Yeah, and what is the typical profile, I mean, of a mission in this case of private helicopters? Is it moving people to and from airports, or people, if you have guests on the yacht, you're also moving them and the yacht stays offshore? Well, I'm just trying to figure out, because obviously it's a It's a very exclusive world that I guess not many people have been able to see with personal capacity. So I'm just curious, what would be the main requirements? Emissions.
A helicopter is the ultimate freedom. With a helicopter, you can go almost wherever you want, whenever you want. It can take off from a little spot and land on a little spot. You can fly it whenever you want, etc., etc. Of course, within the regulations and the weather and a lot of other things. But that means when you get to the point that you own a yacht, then you need the helicopter for convenience. Because if you own a yacht, it's quite likely that maybe you have your own airplane also, because often the airplane is a lighter asset, so you reach the state in your career where you can afford a jet before you can afford a mega yacht. So most likely you have your own airplane that takes you from the airport A to airport B whenever you want. Then at one moment when you own that, it's very likely that you're at a point in your career where you also have a house, maybe not just one nice location, but maybe two nice locations. Yes, and when you look out the window, you look at the beautiful ocean and you want to go sailing. Yeah. So you get to the point where now it's time to get a yacht. And finally, when you get to the size of the yacht where you can bring a helicopter also, that is simply to have an easy transfer from the airport when you land directly to your yacht or to your private garden. So it's to make life easier and more fun. It's also that when you come to a nice destination and you want to go for a sightseeing tour, you want to go and fly and land close to a nice restaurant, it's possible. You can bring guests safely and easily to the yacht as well. I would say the alternative is to go on a tender, and if it's a bit windy, you know how it is to be in a little boat sailing. Not everybody likes that, so that's why you get a helicopter, and also for the security and for the safety, because you can always be brought from your yacht in case you have an issue, a medical issue. You can be flown to shore, and you can be flown to a hospital if needed. So it's basically for convenience of the owners.
And privacy, I guess, because if you are like a major celebrity or a royal, I guess you cannot just walk on the street like this without being spotted. So that gives you convenience.
Absolutely. And that's also why helicopters are amazing, because that's not just for celebrities, but you have places in the world where it's simply not safe to go in a car for long distance. You have that in Africa, you have that in South America, you even sometimes have it in the middle of Europe.
Yeah.
Right? Helicopters are safe if they are safely operated. If you look at the accident statistics in Europe and you compare commercial helicopter operations to commercial airlines, actually helicopters have a better safety record. So operating commercially to commercial standards makes a difference in the helicopter environment.
And how many people fit into these helicopters you fly into the yachts, for example?
That all depends on the size of the helicopters and the seats.
Yeah.
So a typical configuration is maybe 6 seats in the back. So 6 passengers, the pilots, and the pilots in the front, or one pilot and a passenger next to them. That's also possible.
And the interior, how would it look like? Interiors, obviously, it's not. You don't have the same amount of space that you have in a private jet. But you still would have interiors that are kind of fitted for purpose, as luxurious as they can be for the environment.
Yes, so basically what we talked about before, the different type of helicopter operations you have, as I mentioned earlier, you have the military and the civilian. On the civilian side, you have the big helicopters that go to oil rigs. They are fitted in a corporate seating, meaning that the seats are more or less like what you would find in a bus. And in those, you typically need a headset because there's less padding, so the noise level is higher in the cabin. Then you have, of course, the whole medical helicopter world, where the interior in the back is for ambulance use. So you have all the equipment that you use for medical purposes to be transported in a helicopter instead of a ground ambulance. In some parts of the world, especially in Australia, companies who do medical transport have also some extra seats. So they can switch from being a medical helicopter provider, flying helicopter emergency medical services, to be able to offer charter services, because they can take out the cabin and then they can put in seats and a carpet on the floor, and suddenly they have a corporate helicopter seating just like the ones you go offshore, and they can offer that for charter. In other places of the world, then that is not as common. In Australia, it's specific because you have huge distances, and often when you have helicopters, you need both the capacity to do medical flights and to do passenger transport and to do maybe utility work, because helicopters are also used in the utility world to transport things, lift heavy things, and be used in lodging, etc., etc. And then finally, I have to say, you have expeditionary helicopters who go with scientists to the Arctic region and Antarctica, and that's again a different service. So the sector that we are in is the high-end VIP. So most of our helicopters look like a limousine in the back or a business jet, and the padding is much thicker on the walls. So in our helicopters, in most of them at least, you do not need to wear headsets. You can just sit. It's very soundproof in the back, and you sit almost like in your living room.
So that's a very sort of a differential factor when you market the helicopter for an ultra high net worth clientele, is actually the noise, having the level of noise that you can offer.
It's level of noise. It's also some of the types that are used for, we call it VVIP, helicopter transport, very VIP helicopter transport. Here we also choose the helicopters who have the least vibrations and who have the most comfortable profile when you come in and land. Some helicopters land with very high nose up. Some land very straight and level. So it depending on what the clients prefer. If they love the sports car type, we will advise them for a sports car type helicopter. But if they liked, the comfortable, the more smooth flight, then we will advise another type of helicopter.
Okay.
You can get them all.
Interesting. I was not aware of that. Different helicopters had different ways of landing and of moving around.
Yes, thank you.
Very interesting. And
it's all about the aerodynamic, right? If they have more nose up or more nose down, or if they are more straight and level when they fly, every helicopter has its specifics. It's difficult to say which one is the nicest.
Yeah, it's like
if you are passionate about them.
it's like cars. Like you can have very luxurious cars, but of different make. It's not the same a Ferrari than a Rolls Royce, for example. A completely different approach.
One might be more fun to fly than the other, and one might be more comfortable to sit in the back in than the other one. Okay. One of the helicopters we actually have, our largest helicopter is in VIP configuration is a S92. So that is the same type that you normally use for oil and gas transport to fly offshore. But we have it with leather seats in the back, and there's even a bathroom on board. So that one can take 16, 17 passengers and go for a longer flight. And if needed, there's a bathroom.
It's a pretty big helicopter. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah. And how do you see these new designs that are expected to come up soon? Like there's an Italian company that is designing a tilt rotor for the civilian market. The same concept that the US military uses to move the Marines around. It's a vehicle that can land as a helicopter, but then it transitions the rotors to a horizontal position and can move like an airplane, and then move again the rotors to a vertical position and then land as a helicopter. So until now, this is only used by the US military, but there are projects to do this for the civilian market as well. How do you see this new concept? Do you think it's coming up soon, and do you see it as interesting for the type of people that you work with?
How do I see it? I love new technologies and I love new ideas, and I like when you think out of the box and come up with things that nobody else thought about. This, I think, is truly inspiring.
Well, it gives you the more speed, basically, when you need to move from point A to point B, still letting you land. I'm not sure about the actual specifications, though. I don't know if it needs more space to land, or I don't know exactly how it works in terms of landing requirements. But I checked it, and it looked pretty interesting. I can see that being adopted by many people that have this need for privacy and speed.
I think I've been and seen it and been inside it. I think it's a interesting development. I still must say it's a difficult area to develop something new in, because for many years, basically since Sikorsky developed the modern helicopter, a lot of things have been tried, and the only thing that really works well is the helicopter. And we can see it also on all the new UAMs.
Yes,
the new
wanted to ask you about this. How is this seen from the industry? All the new stream of projects that are coming up, like the Volocopter, and Airbus has its own model as well. Uber has been investing as well in its own model. So most of them have characteristics that are quite similar to helicopter. Yeah, I guess that's going to have an impact somehow on the way that people move in these type of distances.
I think the development is really, really interesting. I wish that they could find a new type of machine that has the same or even better capability than the helicopter, but without the noise, without the cost, without the all the things that does that not everybody owns a helicopter. The only issue with it is that if you look at, I have to say, I looked at some of the drawings of other types of helicopters back from the 40s and the 50s. They were already making these machines at that time. They were drawing the same concept, the same everything. Of course, today it's a little bit different with the electronics, the avionics, the way that you can fly these machines via a computer from the ground, etc., etc. But the concepts were there at that time as well. They were looking at 4 rotors on the top instead of just one, different tail rotors and different everything. I don't think anyone yet has come up with the winner, I have to say, because some of these new developments, even though they are fantastic, they're actually huge. And I was a little bit, is this 10 steps, or is this 1 step forward and 3 backwards, or what is it? Because you need the space for them. It's the same thing with the tilt rotor. It's not just straightforward. It's a super good idea, but there are so many things that makes it difficult also. I think it will be great when we get a solution. It will be fantastic. I would love to be the first operator of the tilt rotor. I would love to be the first operator of whichever passenger drone. But I'm still to see the perfect concept. Yeah. Because it is difficult when you touch helicopter aerodynamics and you mix them with fixed wing and you mix them with a different type of rotor. It's not easy. And that's also why we had a few years ago that the whole world were looking at, this is fantastic, we will have these in the air within 5 years. I actually thought probably we will be able to fly around in drones. Will it be much better than the ultralights or similar? I wasn't convinced, but I'm still sure we will have some passenger drones and people flying in them. The whole concept on how do we operate these is a bit more complex, because you have the airspace, where do you want these machines flying, who shall operate them, because the risk is that even though it's machines that can be controlled by a computer, by everything. There's still human factors involved. You can still have a mistake in the development, in the operation. And if you don't use the experienced people, I will say the operators who have experience with human factors and safety management, if they do not get involved in operation of these new machines, then you will see the same amount of accidents that we had until now, I think.
Yeah, we're still some way off this becoming mainstream. We'll see. I mean, some of these projects are quite ambitious. They expect to be flying regularly between the next 3 to 5 years. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Charlotte, one question I have for you. How can you book a helicopter? So if I wanted to book a helicopter, what's the best way to do it? Just come to Lux Aviation website and tell you where I need to fly and when, and then you arrange it, or?
Of course, you can just contact us at helicopters with an S, helicopters at luxaviation.com and give us your requests. And we will guide you. We will then guide you to the best option in your area, whom we would have booked with ourselves. Or we can propose you, if we have our own helicopters available, we can propose you to book one of our helicopters. But if it's in a region where we do not have helicopters available, we will make use of our fantastic helicopter partner network. So we have companies that we work with in both North America, in South America, in all of Europe, in Asia, everywhere.
So the process is basically the following. I go to Lux Aviation. Well, obviously I can contact you via email or telephone, but if not, there's the option of sending a request via the Lux Aviation website. So I see here, I'm on luxaviation.com.
Yes.
And I see there's a form where I can enter from where I want to fly to where. Departure, there's even one-way round trip multi-city, just like a normal airline. I can specify which type of aircraft I want to fly. Oh, I see you have also the private jets. How many passengers? Okay, then enter the email. And then this is not automated, right? So I send it, and then you work out the quote, and you contact me with a quote.
Yes, you're right. Then it gets to our offices, and we will get back to you and let you know which options we can suggest you. If we have a preferred operator in the area where you want to fly, we will simply guide you directly to that operator so that you deal directly with them, because that is the easiest for all the small corrections there might be. You have a change of date, or you have more people, less people, or more luggage, or the weather changes. So it's easier for you to deal directly with the operator. If it's in a region where we don't really have anyone to forward you to, then what we can suggest is that we can look for an operator for you. We actually managed recently to find the only twin-engine modern helicopter in Mongolia.
Oh, wow.
Which was a correct commercial register with all the right authorizations. And then we gave the contacts to the client. So we do have all our specific ways to find two operators.
Yeah, Mongolia is one of the countries that's very, very close to the top of my list of places I want to visit. So I'll keep it in mind. If I go there, want to fly over the steppe. Very good. So I'm going to add a link so that anyone that wants to book a helicopter can easily send you a request a quote and send you a request for booking.
And then we will help to guide to the best option for an operator amongst our network.
Just to wrap it up, have you been much affected by all this pandemic thing?
I think every transportation related company in the world has been affected. Yes. This is a crisis in the transport sector and the tourism sector that has not been seen till now. Yeah, it has not been seen ever. Yeah. I think in the business aviation sector, we have been very fast to react to it because we are used to working with a not planned schedule.
Yeah.
We are used to getting requests left, right, and centers, changes left, right, and center. So we are our whole business aviation organization is fully prepared for the unknown all the time. So we've been extremely fast at reacting, but we have also realized that this is so serious that we need to work together in the sector. So we have done a lot of initiatives to work with also our competitors to work together to together get through this and help each other out. In the helicopter sector, in general, yes, we have been hit. We have not been hit in the same way as the airliners. Also because the helicopter sector typically have a big part of our industry is doing medical helicopters, so they have still been flying. However, one thing to realize is a lot of these companies who are doing medical flights, and that's also their source of revenue, of course. And the thing is, when people are not allowed to drive from A to B, there are luckily less accidents, but that also means that these helicopter companies have no request for flights. So they are, in a way, even though they are less hit than the airlines who are simply not allowed to fly, they hardly hit this sector.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess quite a few people rushing to their yachts to self-isolate in the middle of the sea.
That is true. So yes, we have still been working during all this. So we are maybe, how should I say, one of the niche areas that are less affected. But on the other hand, since we are also involved very much with the yachting industry, we are so deeply connected to the whole industry, which is suffering, right? So,
yes, of course. And obviously there are many social occasions and events, high profile things like film festivals and big industry conventions and things like that have been cancelled. So I guess that
a lot of things are not going on. I mean, I'm looking at my helicopter partners in places of the world. For example, New York has been extremely hard hit. So our partners' heliflight there, they have been extremely restricted in what they were able to do because they were simply not allowed to move from A to B. And the same thing in other places of the world. Our partners in southern Spain, Helity, but however they shifted quickly to do medical flights, which they also do. So they didn't shift, but they luckily had that sector as well. So they have been doing a lot of efforts to support the hospital and the medical world. And the same thing for our partners in other places of the world who were in other regions had other missions to do, but still it's tough.
I can imagine, yeah.
I have to say a lot of the helicopter companies are not very large. They are small companies who, many of them own their helicopters and they have the pilots hired. So when there is no revenue coming in, what do? You can't sell your helicopter. Nobody wants to buy it right now. So it's a sad situation.
Yeah, well, hopefully it looks like things are improving in some regions of the world. So let's see how it goes.
I think so too, but I think also that the politicians have to react now and open up the airports, open up the transport industry, the tourism and everything, because otherwise the economy would be much harder hit than they realize. And there's nothing preventing neither the airlines, nor the helicopter companies, nor the private jets to operate fully safely with hand sanitizers, with masks, with everything, so that the transport from A to B is done exactly in the same manner as the procedures you have in place in the country, where if you are more than X amount of people together, you have to wear a mask, you don't shake hands, you wash your hands often. It can be done completely the same way. There's no difference. Actually, there's less intervention because you have the whole ventilation system on board the aircraft with fresh air all the time. It's fully safe.
So you have on the helicopter, it's the same as in an commercial airplanes, that you are renewing the air all the time.
it's done the same way. It's done the same way. The helicopters is even easier because we fly sometimes at a speed where you actually can open the window also.
Yeah.
So there is nothing preventing a safe and secure flight.
Well, let's hope that things get better soon. And I think we can leave it here for now. Maybe we can revisit the topic of helicopters sometime in the future. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you very much.